All right. As I said, this is Pastor B's Kitchen Table, and every Friday we have this post about what's going on. This is the place where we deal with real relational issues here. I always say we break them down and tear them apart and put them back together again. And we invite everybody to come to the kitchen table, because the kitchen table, when I grew up, was a place where everyone came to talk about serious issues. It wasn't a living room. It certainly wasn't a bathroom. It was always a kitchen table. And so I've been talking about for the past few weeks how we didn't have any guests because of COVID. And so we're just pleased that today we have a real live guest here and a tremendous guest we do have, Principal Fickel. So if you would, just kind of tell everyone, please, exactly who you are.
Hey, thank you, Pastor Hamilton. So my name is Keith Fickel. I'm the principal at Sugarland Middle School, just a stone's throw away from y'all's church. And I've been here now. This is finishing up my 4th year, and it's 20-something years in the district. I want to say maybe 23, 24, something like that in the district. And I've been in several places around the district, but this has been my first place to actually be a building principal. And so God willing, and the creek don't rise, let me go into a 5th year next year.
Yeah.
And but I have to say, your church and your people have really blessed our school community over the last several years through volunteering for various activities and events, manning the phones when I take the ladies out for lunch on Administrative Professionals Day, helping us with our career day with your waffle breakfast, mentoring folks and whatnot. So your church has been a real blessing to our community, and it's a real pleasure and an honor to be here to visit with you today, Pastor.
Wow. I thank you just for the open door and God put us together at such a time as this. After 23 years of being in the district, have you ever seen anything like this?
I haven't. Of course, we had Harvey not too long ago. But kind of incidentally, I just recorded a message for our 8th graders. We're having to do a virtual award ceremony for them. And one of the pieces that I put in there for our 8th graders is that they started their middle school experience with Harvey, and they're ending it with a worldwide pandemic. So encouraging them to see this as an opportunity that despite these circumstances, that they're going to rise above because of these circumstances, that they've been through this, and it doesn't define who they are. But no, this has been a big deal for sure. We're kind of flexing some muscles we didn't know that we had. But I've been very pleased and proud of our school district in Fort Bend ISD, how we've come together and kind of been leading our area of Southeast Texas, if not Texas, and how we're addressing students' needs, both academically but also social emotionally, and kind of trying to find that Goldilocks, that sort of just right combination of, engaging them online, but then not asking too much of them and of their teachers too, who are also parents. But no, I have never seen anything like this in my lifetime. So, especially in my professional lifetime.
Right.
So it's one for the books, and it's certainly not over. And but we're gonna learn from this and be able to take our best steps forward as we move on.
I was so excited about having you as a guest because I just wanted to hear from a principal perspective. I've been in meetings, of course, with people from all over the county, but I haven't talked directly to a principal. And so I want to just hear from you. How has this impacted you and what you do now?
Well, it's, just from the real low-hanging fruit, it's just like instead of being physically in the building and being able to go from class to class and see the kids and engage with them, that part has been very different. I've engaged with some of them virtually when I pop in on some of their classes, but working with the teachers and helping them and supporting them is still there. It's just, it looks very different now. It's, of course, online, much like we're doing now. But it has really underscored the need for us to focus on, for me as a leader, to focus on kind of like that whole spiritual side or that social emotional side of people's work before we engage their intellect. One of the education phrases that we have is that we're going to Maslow before we bloom. Thinking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs before we try to get to Bloom's taxonomy. So we're really focused on making sure that people are okay, trying to keep lines of communication open with our staff, and trying to engage our community because not all of our students have engaged with us. We still have some students that we haven't heard from and are checking in with and getting some help to knock on doors, make sure everybody's okay, if there's things that they need. We're not talking about educational need. We're talking about everyday living kind of needs. If it's rent money, if it's food, if it's stuff like that. So it definitely is. It's the same work that we've always done, but it's kind of slightly removed because you can't do that personal touch physically or be present physically with someone. So we try to do it in a little different format. So the work is still there. It just looks very, very different. But I'm really, really proud of how our teachers have stepped up to this challenge and how the leaders in our school and our community are engaging together and working together to make sure that everyone is okay.
That is tremendous. You're talking about doing holistic ministry, and many times all you hear is about the test and the text. But you're talking about touching lives and seeing how they're doing and knocking on doors and making sure that their emotional and needs are met. That is really, in a lot of ways, that's kind of like old school, because when I was coming up, those are the kind of teachers and the kind of schools that we really had in our community. They really dealt with every aspect of your life. Of course, many of us ended up going to church together with our teachers and things like that, but they cared about the totality of who you were as an individual, and that's what I hear you are doing. What about your teachers? How are your teachers doing?
I think they're a lot like the students, and a lot of them are doing great and just fine. Some of them, I think, maybe are struggling a little bit, and the real challenge has been, and I don't fit in this category simply because my wife and I we're empty nesters. Our child is getting ready to start her last year at U of H. Mm-hmm. So, but many of our teachers, probably at least half of them, while they're also planning lessons and meeting with their peers and preparing lessons to submit or to create online, they're also having to do the same with their own children. Yeah. They're working with their children in their lessons. Yeah. And, some of them are single parents as well. So there's a definite potential for stress there for them. But we do try very much in an overt way to reach out to them, to check on them, if it's as simple as a text or a little note. Fortunately, now we have all these different tools. Our district has invested heavily in Microsoft Teams. So we can just shoot someone a note using that platform. I've been writing notes to our staff members. My goal, if I can write 10 postcards a day, in about the next 10 days, every staff member on my staff will have received a postcard from me. It's nothing much, but it is personal and it's something physical and tangible. But just to check in on them, let them know we're thinking about them. But it is real. The challenge is real, particularly for my teachers who are both a teacher and a parent, and especially for the ones who are parents of younger ones like pre-K and maybe early childhood, primary grades. That's a real challenge. And so my heart goes out to those staff members, and we try really hard to be cognizant of what we ask them to do. And so that kind of goes back to what I'm doing as a principal and what we're doing as a leadership team. We're trying really hard to make sure we put ourselves in that role of what it was like to be a teacher, because before we were principals or administrators, we were also classroom teachers. Yeah. So I try really hard, or we try as a team really hard to go back. What would this feel like? What would this sound like if I was receiving this as a teacher? And if it doesn't really feel like it'd sound and feel all that good, we have to stop and rethink what that be like. Kind of outside my office door is one of Maya Angelou's quotes that people may forget what you did or said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. So this is one of those opportunities for us to make sure that people get the right feeling. And communication is key, and we don't always connect, but we'll try again. So hopefully our staff knows that we love on them, we care for them, and we want the best for them. And but I think we're doing well, but I know there's some that are probably kind of struggling as well.
Yeah. Couple of questions that have come to mind and listen to some of the students. One of them is that, will there be a graduation this year?
So, the Dr. Dupree and the Board of Trustees has planned at this point to hold some kind of graduation ceremony in July, towards the end of July. But at the board meeting just earlier this week, and with Governor Abbott's decree, I think it was on Monday, he made open the possibility for open air graduations. And so in a meeting this morning with Dr. Dupree, he mentioned to the principals that, maybe there might be a possibility of doing some kind of a graduation ceremony in June. They're looking at that. But at the very least, if they can't do something in the open air in June, which is, in South Texas in June, gets warm outside. Yeah. But at the very least, they've committed to trying to do something in July, I believe at the Smart Financial Center in late July.
Okay. And so when will school resume again?
Well, that's a great question. If I could, look into the future and all, I could be able to tell you that. But as far as we're concerned in the district, August 12th, I think that's our start date. Nothing has changed about the start date of the school year. So the published calendar is still the published calendar. That's when we're looking to begin school. The question isn't maybe so much when as maybe how it looks. So there's a tremendous group of district leaders who are coming together. It's called a design team, and they're basically looking at all the possible what ifs and all the different scenarios that could exist, ranging from, everything seems like it's good and we can have a traditional start without any kind of modifications to our year, and we just start on August 12th like we've always done. Or if we need to continue in an online fashion like we're doing now, what would that look like? Or would there need to be some kind of hybrid model where maybe we start online and then shift and transition into a brick and mortar school experience? Or possibly would there need to be some kind of arrangement where if in order to keep kids apart from one another, would we have to limit ourselves to having 25 or 50% of our students in the building? What would that look like? So we're kind of trying to make some plans for things that we really don't know about yet, because one of our big beliefs is it's better to have a plan and not need it than to need a plan and not have it. So, and on top of all that, also making plans to where if, let's say we launch traditionally, if we're allowed to do that and that makes sense and it's safe to do so, how are we going to account for students whose parents maybe still don't feel comfortable with them coming to school? What about staff members? That maybe don't feel comfortable and they're not ready to come back. How does that affect things? Or start school traditionally and all of a sudden there's another outbreak again and we have to kind of shift and pivot to something like we're doing now. Having some nimbleness, if you'll pardon the phrase, in our organization to where we can shift and pivot based on the circumstances. So there's a whole lot of planning going on right now for potential what ifs. And hopefully we'll have a really great plan in place for any eventuality in the fall. And we can just, open door number one or open door number two, depending upon what the circumstances will allow.
What are your expectations in terms of the ability to retain what the students are learning during this COVID crisis? Because obviously, as you said, you've had to pivot, you've shown some nimbleness. I'm quite sure most things you're doing that has to be virtual learning. And of course, the kids have already heard the message that for this year, it's a wrap. So what are you really expected to be retained from these students?
Well, I'll just kind of go back up a little bit. Like it's just in any typical year, if we hadn't had this COVID outbreak, in any year, as we wrap up one year and we go into another year, there is the summer slough off of learning where kids kind of forget some of the things that they've learned, and we need to go back and reteach some of that. So that's always kind of present, particularly when learning has to scaffold on one another. Like in order to be able to learn C, you have to know A and B before you can do C. That's always there. But even in this online environment that we're in, our district has narrowed the curriculum a little bit to the things that are really the most important concepts. We're calling them focus standards or focus areas. So we've whittled down in this fourth 9 weeks to just the essentials of what they need to know that maybe bear some aspect of learning for the fall. So a part of this design team that I mentioned to you earlier are looking at ways to in models with no matter how we start the year, whether it's that hybrid model or whether it's a traditional year or we start online, how are we going to go back and recoup some of the loss in addition to stuff that kind of gets lost in a typical year anyway?
Yeah.
So that is definitely a challenge. But I think most importantly to all that, the message that's fundamentally important to all our kids is we care about them first and their well-being. Again, going back to that Maslow piece,
Right.
we'll be able to always take care of that Bloom's piece later on, but you can't. I guess you can't bloom until you Maslow, so to speak.
Yeah.
I know I keep bringing it up. But yeah, that's definitely a challenge. But we're looking at a variety of ways to make that occur. But it's still kind of a little bit unknown. But it's a definite priority for the district for sure.
Now, as a principal, who certainly you have older children, but you're dealing with staff that have children. What encouraging word can you give for these parents? Because the parents are not only sheltering in place, many of them, with their children, but they're also trying to help these children navigate some of these studies. I've said before, because there's a lot of teachers in our church, that now more than ever, teachers are highly valued. This would be a great time to lobby for a pay raise because the whole education system is so needed. But many of them are at home with their children, and they are just frustrated. They are struggling. What word of encouragement would you give just as a principal and you're there every day? What would you say to the parents?
Yeah, so you hit the nail on the head. Encouragement is definitely the word for them. But, we're all in this together. We're all a team. And my message as a principal, if this were a person on my staff, would be you've got to take care of you first. Yeah. It's kind of like when you're on the airplane, before you buckle in, the stewardess or the flight attendant, I guess is the correct phrase now, the flight attendant will kind of walk you through all those pre-flight things. And one of them is if those the oxygen mask sort of fall down from the panel above, you got to put your own oxygen mask on before you help people around you.
That's right.
So because if you run out of oxygen, you won't be able to help the people around you. So you got to take care of yourself first is number one. Take some time off, step up, stretch, walk, take breaks. Like I've started doing Camp Gladiator, a little workout thing with my wife. That's been kind of fun. In fact, I got a workout tonight. When we're done with this, I gotta get home and get a workout in. But that's important. But also just taking things one step at a time, and don't be afraid to ask for assistance if you need it. Don't suffer in silence if there's a problem. Let your superior, your coworker know, because what do they say? A burden shared is makes it much easier to lift a burden if you share it with someone rather than try to do it all on your own. But then also I think just things that seem as simple, and it's easy for me to say again because my daughter's out of the house and on her own, so I would just encourage people to make a schedule for their family, try to stick to that schedule, get up at your regular time, do your routines. I think routines are key, and I think that would be my advice to them. But encouragement is huge, that we will get through this. It will be okay, just like we got through Harvey. People whose homes flooded and whatnot, we lift each other up. People come together to lift each other up, but we'll get through this. And it'll be very different on the other side. You mentioned lobbying for pay raises. I think this may be the first time in a very long time where folks really, really understand what it's like to be a teacher, because it is not an easy job. It's actually not even a job. It's really a calling. We refer to it as a secular mission. So, but just stay the course. It'll be fine, but keep that line of communication open with your coworkers and particularly your supervisor, and don't suffer in silence.
Oh, that's powerful. And so I like what you said about reaching out and asking for assistance, because it's okay to admit that you don't know. And right now, some of them are in some new waters that they've never been in before, and just a frustration of their own lives and then dealing with their children. But I think that the instructions you've given about reaching out, be encouraged, take your time, do have some schedule, because I think the one thing that really erodes quickly is a set schedule. And so knowing that each day we get up, we still have to maintain some level of scheduling that deals with the whole person, as you said, about dealing with you as you exercise and dealing with our mental capacity and spiritually and just socially as well. As much as we're able to do. So I think all that's important. I've heard some parents, they were considering putting themselves in timeout because they just felt like it's just so difficult. Maybe I need a break. But so I thank you for that, because I think they need to hear that directly from you. You got
Absolutely.
the last.
I did have one more thing that just came to mind. I don't know why I didn't think of it before, but as our nature as educators, we try to do so well. We want everything to be perfect for every kid, but we can't allow perfection to be the enemy of the good. So I know a lot of people will spend so much time burning the midnight oil and burning the candle at both ends to try to make everything perfect for every kid. And at some point, while that's laudable, it's not sustainable. And we have to get comfortable with doing our best, which doesn't equate to perfection.
Yeah. That's right. Our best, but doesn't equate. Do your best. Wow.
And giving ourselves permission to not be perfect.
Not be perfect. That's freeing. That's liberating, isn't it?
Yeah.
I always say that we hold ourselves to a standard even God doesn't hold us to. God holds to a standard of faithfulness, not perfection. And so that's a very, very good word. You got the last word. As we go forward, and I like what you said numerous times, we will get through this. We've been through crisis before. You're speaking on behalf of Sugar Land Middle School, but you're also important to the district. And as a parent, and as someone who's also going through this as well, you have there's a ton of people who are watching, will be watching this, and they're wondering, what can I do with my family to ensure that when this thing opens up again, we are ready to roll? What would you tell them today?
Yeah, just use this time to connect with your family. And I'll be honest with you, I don't want to come across as hypocritical about this, because what I say is something I need to do with my own family, is to connect with them and to allow this time to not go to waste.
Yeah.
To spend more time with family, because we are presented with this opportunity. It may not feel like we have this opportunity, but we do. Yeah. So if my wife is watching this, she can hold me accountable to what I'm saying. Yeah. But no, that would be my thing, is to just make sure we don't allow the lessons that we've learned from this situation to be forgotten. Because I think sometimes that's what we tend to do, is we go through something and we make a commitment to do something better and different. But then when things aren't in a crisis situation, we kind of revert back to kind of what was comfortable prior to the event. So that'd be my advice. Just don't, whatever you learn that makes things better for you and your family, make sure you don't forget that lesson.
Amen. Even this season is ordained by God. Didn't say God made it happen, but it's ordained. You can use it. You can seize this moment. I'm reading Ecclesiastes, where it says there's a time for everything. There's a time to laugh, and there's also a time to cry. And certainly during this COVID-19, we have seen both, but yet God is still in control. I thank you so much, Principal Fickel, for making just the time in your schedule. I know you have burned the candle on both ends, and you've got so many people you're responsible for, but just to say that we're in the community with you. You've always been a great partner, as well as your school. And I pray for you and your family and your staff and all those students who are, honestly, they're blessed to have you at the helm, who really care about their entire well-being and not just their academic well-being. So may God bless you and bless your house. And I say to all of our viewers, this is the kitchen table. Go tell somebody. Tell all your NIMs, your mama NIM, daddy NIM, cousin NIM, that we heard today from Principal Fickel. And he said, if nothing else, what he has said, we will get through this. So we thank you. Look forward to seeing you again real soon. And I won't cease praying for you, Principal. Keep doing what you're doing. And hey, and knock out that workout today. All right?
Will do. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much for the invitation, the opportunity to be at the kitchen table with you, Pastor.
Amen. God bless you. God keep you.